to fade Wemby in the
Yeah,
next Cleveland
Wemby.
and have like a lot of Paul
But
George.
see, I faded Wemby, but I ended up with a lot of Julius Randle because of
Dude,
it, and I think they got about the same.
I had a lot of Kawhi Leonard. So much so I even went to the fucking game yesterday and saw this fool have the worst game of his career. This shit fool
You
is a
didn't think it
bum.
was a Paul George plus Russell Westbrook night?
I thought it was Kawhi Leonard thinking to himself, I'm never gonna get to shoot the ball once James Harden's here. I'm gonna go hoop.
That wasn't the case. All right, we are live on YouTube. We got some friends here. I'm excited. NBA, something I haven't focused on in 5+ years. Yesterday was only my second slate of playing NBA, and I made 50% profit. So I'm fucking fully addicted, ready to max hump day hoops today and lose it all and then some. But we are here with Andy. We're here with Soby. We have two players on the opposite side of the NBA spectrum. We have a very profitable, lifelong winning player, and then we have Soby, who in his name put unprofitable. So I just first, before we dive in, how are you guys doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Can't complain. Big NBA day, so been
It's a massive NBA
spending a
day.
lot
We
of
got
time
what,
there.
13 games.
Yeah.
Good slate.
Do you like
I'm
these
good, dude.
13 games? Like, do you do more of the 12-man drafts or the 6-man on a day like today?
I mean, I max all of
All
it.
of it.
So yeah, I do them both. No, I don't like these really big slates. I think they're pretty random. Like I don't think there's very much. I think these ones and like the 2 or 3 game, there isn't very much skill expression. It's mostly just like, did you get lucky on the right guy? Um,
It
I
does
think
feel
that
like I'm scrolling down past 33 and I'm seeing a lot of names that I'm like, wow, this guy could get 50 or 60 points. Wow, this guy could get 50 or 60 points. And it's trying to make sure that, what I did on Monday, which I think was incorrect, is I don't think any drafts I had multiple people past ADPs of like 32 or 33. I might have had like one guy at 29 or 30, and then maybe one guy at 35. But I wasn't going off the board and taking like I'm trying
Norman
to think of the
Powell. You weren't
combos.
taking
Like
Norman
was it
Powell?
like yeah, it's like DeWante Murray and Jalen Brown, like at the end, right? Like I think Murray was basically undrafted or like 35.5, and then Brown was 32 or something. And I just wasn't getting a lot of teams where I was going that far off the board. So I'm trying to fix that today. But yeah, I just listened to the Club Top Shot episode with Andy from yesterday to get a little bit of insight on your process before I asked you even more questions about it. For the people who don't listen to Club Top Shot, you should. That's where Andy talks on Tuesdays with Pete and friends about NBA stuff. But what I gathered, and I took some notes on this, what I gathered is that you're doing a good amount of drafts the night before. You're waking up really early, doing your own projections, and then max entering before ETR really even releases their projections. Um, and then you kind of have this uniqueness of, well, like, the field is using one set of projections and you're doing it your own way. So if your projections are right, you're going to be on, way lower combinations and ownership than the field is because you're not really using the main projections. Is that kind of the right way to think about your process in a nutshell?
yeah, and also at the same time though, like if there's this like today, I really don't feel like I have a great feel on things, and so like I haven't maxed yet today. I want to wait and see what ETR comes out with and try to, you know, see if I have any feels against it or alongside it. So I've done like, let's see, right now I've done, I want to say like 50 or so
And is that
drafts.
50, like, is that 25 in the 6-man hump day hoops and
I've done
25?
55 of the hump day hoops and 20 full court press.
Nice.
And so right now, it's been a pretty aggressive draft so far. So for the hump day hoops, I have like, well, I have a lot of Kyrie, which is the risk you get with a lot of this stuff, but it's fine.
It's a
I have a
lot
lot,
of
basically
cues on a day like
all the
today.
Q tags. So literally my of my 6 highest owned players, 5 of them have an injury designation. It's Paul George, Tyrese Halliburton, Trey Young, Kyrie, Cade Cunningham, and Jimmy Butler. Um,
It looks like
and I
Jimmy's
think
trending up. I saw
Yeah,
he
he
was
just got upgraded to probable.
probable. Yes, that's nice. On the NBA is tough because with all these Q tags, like I just had a draft where I took Trey, and then after Trey, I took Halliburton, and then after Halliburton, I took Paul George. And when the draft was over, there was like, a dozen plus people still left that I'm like, oh, like these people could all get 45, 50 points on my team, even if I don't get these Qs. Whereas like last night with Levert, if you took Levert and then you had to swap, it didn't feel like there
You're
was
fucked.
that much good stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it really, I think, depends on these slates. But one of the things I wanted to ask you is how do you like set the projections the night before, or like what is your model look like for projection settings? Are you kind of,
Yeah, it's nothing that crazy, to be honest. Um, I'm calculating every player's fantasy points per minute. Just basically I get all their stats, how many minutes they've played, how many fantasy points per minute they play. Um, and then I'm from there also I calculate the total of the game
Mhm,
and what their average total is, and then also the team they're playing against, their average pace. So if the team they're playing is really fast paced, um, and if the total is higher than like what they have normally, they I'll give them a boost, like a percentage boost, basically based on the change. So if your team's pace is 100 and the team you're playing is 105, uh, I'll give you like a 2.5% boost, basically. That
makes sense.
projecting that this game you'll play at 102.5 pace, and that's just his pace is just number of possessions per game that you
And when
get.
you're doing the fantasy points per minute calculations in this early of the season, are you pulling on like historical data from last season as well? Or are you waiting just much more of what has happened over the last 2 weeks?
Right
Uh,
now, I'm almost only using last year's. It's pretty imperfect right now. Like I think that there's just like a ton of volatility right now, and so I'm also at the same time like kind of just IKBing it sometimes, where I'll look at a certain player who I have projected a certain way and be like, that doesn't seem right. I'm just going to move them down, or I'm going to change something.
does
Um,
IKB stand for I know ball?
it stands for I know better,
Okay.
um, but
I had
you can really
not
use it for both.
I had not heard about it like until you named IKB something. I was like, oh, like what is this? Um, but my hunch was like, oh, it must be like I know ball, but I know better makes sense. So for
But it
tonight, like this is a massive slate. Few games really jump out at me, and one game jumps out at me is like I don't want to take players from it, and I might just be scarred from last night. But how do you approach this 13 game slate? Like you have your projections, you made your ranks, you auto drafted everything. You're waiting right now. Like what what games do you like? What players stick out? Like, are there any stands that you're taking? You're willing to take a guy a half round early. Um,
Yeah, there's a couple things that I have that are like sticking out to me based on my projections right now, and like probably there's some really really heavy fades that I have where I'm essentially not going to draft these players.
pull up the totals.
Donovan Mitchell is the biggest one. I don't think I'll have a single draft of Donovan Mitchell
Yeah.
tonight.
Let
So we
him
don't
have it,
think
bro.
so. Like Donovan didn't play a ton of minutes last night. I think it was 28. We don't think there's any of like this. They're pissed they lost, revenge game. They're going to New York. They want to do it on them. There's none of that in the tank.
It's definitely possible, but I think the biggest issue that I get to with a guy like him is I just like am so massively projecting better games from other players who are cheaper than him that it's just really, really hard for me to get there. And
It's a
that's why I
gross
also
game.
use randomness in my stuff because hopefully I get there a little bit every once in a while. My randomness gives him a massive boost and the guys who are ahead of him a massive cut down. But like kind of going alongside that, so Mitchell's going at like 11 or 12,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have like some Q tag guys like Halliburton and Trey Young, who I have projected scoring 15% more points than him, like
Just
meaningfully
no
different
brainer.
amounts of points, to where I'm just always taking them above him. And then even guys like Şengün and LaMelo Ball and Desmond Bain, I all have projected for like a 10% boost in
Look,
production.
we're seeing Deeze build his rankings live right now.
No, dude. So I haven't built my rankings. Everything I've done today, I've hand drafted while I'm just like sitting around. I'm like, let me take some.
So
I was
you
doing
auto
like
draft everything, Andy. That's me and Deez draft here. I try to do what you do in crutches. They do this thing where they set where you so what you said is every 15 drafts you change your rankings again, and then you just let it rip. It's
Yeah.
really nice to get filled on that, but one thing I realized when I was trying to do that is because I wasn't actually putting the whole uh, list of people. I was like, these are my guys. I'm putting them on here. And what ended up happening is I ended up getting really bad variance in my drafts, where I'm getting like random dudes that I didn't like account for. Like um, even if I have someone like 7 points above or below in the rankings, I should still probably have them in case they fall or whatever, because you're getting them instead of a much lower ranked player.
Mm-hmm.
yes, I made that mistake last night where after my first set of drafts, I think I had like 80% Zubac or whatever. I looked at it and was like, oh well, I need to move him down 3 or 4 slots. It's interesting. Same with Wemby, right? Like I had Wemby at 8 or something or 7, but I was getting him in 20% of the drafts, and I was like, I don't know. I'm still definitely getting used to finding the line between, oh, I'm just gonna like take the projection and ceiling and divide it by 2 or whatever, and then take that number and make ranks, versus like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I just did 25 and I had, fucking Porzingis under LaMelo Ball and Halliburton, and I didn't get a single Porzingis share. Like now I want to make sure I get Porzingis. I'm going to move him up, like that type of stuff. It's hard though, because on a night like tonight with these 13 game slates, like all of these names you're looking at, you're like, oh, I want a little Scotty Barnes. Like I want a little Murray. I, I want a little bit of this guy, that guy, like Cade Cunningham and Russell Westbrook. Like, I don't know. Something I definitely need to get better at, but you don't just want to take your projections and I think upload them and then just shoot off those ranks. Like you definitely have to massage it a little bit.
Yeah, and
And what
I think tonight is a bit unique in that, like, I think you can kind of forego ADP in a lot of ways just because of how deep this, like, tonight is. There's some version of outcomes where the optimal lineup is only players drafted in the 6th round, which is like not really
Whoa,
intuitive,
possible.
like you could take, I don't know, Jamal
that is
Murray,
actually a
Cade
good point.
Cunningham, Russ,
Jimmy Butler,
Mo-
Vucevic,
DeRozan, Levine,
Carl Anthony Towns. Like there's a world where that is the optimal lineup. That's just like the
Jordan
6 highest
Poole,
scoring players.
Kuzma.
Whereas like most nights, the 6th round players are noticeably tiers below the top players, and in this they still are. But like I think you can make the case on these really really big slates that you should like ignore ADP a little bit more. And so that's one thing that I also do in my projections, and a way that I kind of manipulate my data is like based on the slate size and how much I want to respect or not respect ADP, I will essentially just subtract from people's projections based on where they're going in the draft. And so, like, on a night like tonight, if I probably need to update it a little bit, to be honest, but I'll go from anywhere from, the square root of their ADP to just totally subtracting their ADP, where like,
Square root,
yeah. So
Dude,
dude.
he's
This fool's
doing
on some
fucking
crazy
quadratic
shit.
formulas on there and shit.
So like tonight is to me is like a square
Man,
root of
different.
their ADP thing, where basically what you do is you're going to subtract anywhere from essentially 0 or 1 to 6 points based on their ADP. And so the players who are going later, we're going to subtract a little bit. And essentially what that does is it kind of normalizes your rankings to ADP. So that way you get exposure to every player. On a night where you want to respect ADP more, like say in like a 5 or 6 game slate, I'll actually just straight up subtract their ADP from their projections. And so the guys who I'll be drafting in the last couple rounds on my sheet, I'll have them at negative point projections because maybe I have them projected for 30 points, but they're going at pick 33. And so I have them projected for negative 3 points.
Let me ask you
Int-
this, Andy. How much are you projecting like the dog in someone? Like I love taking Anthony Edwards every time he's on the slate because his dog ranking is very high to me.
My sheet does not have any dog calculation in it, which
There's
is,
no dog variable.
yeah,
You're just taking square roots, dude. You're not doing no dog math.
no dogs.
The dog math can't be good for LaMelo Ball. That I was so heavy on LaMelo Ball on Monday. Monday was the first night that I multi-entered NBA. Like I've been watching Andy and Crutches talk about this for basically a year now, since the start of last season. And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna there's something here. I'm gonna start aping in. But yeah, I made that mistake with LaMelo Ball. And it was one of those things where I had him at like 3 spots ahead of his ADP, and then I auto drafted 50 lineups, and then I ended up with, I don't know, 30-40% of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I learned, like, oh, I really need to massage these ranks a little bit more. For the 12 gamer, I actually, for the 12 team drafts, I haven't really done those. Monday,
those
I
a
think
lot
I did
more.
like 2 just to see, but how deep down are you going in there? Does that get to like this Jordan Clarkson, Norman Powell, Draymond Horford tier, or does it get worse?
Let's see. Let me pull up where.
I'm deep down in like the Shade and Sharp to
Yeah, I've taken Shade and Sharp in a couple. So like right now, based on like if I were to kill the randomness that I have in my stuff, I'd probably end up in the last round drafting guys like Chris Paul, Drew Holiday, Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton, D'Angelo Russell, Shaden Sharp. How many people
so
get
not
drafted?
even that bad, honestly. I guess for the 13
No.
game slate, like you're still getting the starters and people
Yeah,
who
I
are
think 72 players get picked, right? Because it's 36 times 2. Yeah,
and
1226.
then you have
So yeah, my
65 starters.
72nd player is Gordon Hayward right now.
Nice.
That's like my cutoff currently.
That's where it ends.
Are we taking a lot of Malik Monk with Fox out?
I mean, definitely not in the 6-man drafts. Let's see. I think I'm getting to Keegan Murray before I get to Malik Monk. I don't think
Yeah,
Malik Monk is in my player pool.
I'm trying to grab some. This is the thing about NBA. So I'm trying to be profitable in NBA. I watch basketball more than I watch football. But what I realized is, depending on the slate, like Wednesday, obviously there's the most amount of games, and like you just said, Andy, there isn't a scenario in which the best lineup is literally people in the 6th round, which is insane. Like that would never happen in the NFL,
Mm-hmm.
right? You like there would be a player probably in the 6th round that you needed to have, to win it all that week.
Gus Edwards.
Gus Edwards.
There's always a
Dante
Gus Edwards.
Foreman. So for one thing about your process that I wanted to start incorporating more is that randomness, because I hate it when I go from my process so far, and I'm still trying to tweak my process. It's pretty shit. I really dislike when I go and I'm checking the leaderboards of like what are the highest ranking games or highest scores, and I check their players and their lineups. I'm like, oh, I have literally 1 share of this guy,
Mm-hmm.
or I literally have 2 shares of this guy. It feels a lot better when you can get at least, even if you have 5 lineups with some of these randomness players, that might be those 5 shares might be what you needed for like the highest permutation scoring lineup. So when
Yeah.
you're doing randomness, like what are you doing? Are you literally just like pressing randomize, or how are you creating that?
So let me my laptop is going to die soon. I was telling Deeze before you got on, Soby, that I have the joy of my this thing that I use to connect all my shit to my Mac bricked this
What the
morning.
hell is that?
It's just like a dock. It has a bunch of like USB-C plugs and stuff. And so I'm currently unable to both like charge my laptop and like use all the things I have plugged in. So I'm gonna try something here to see if I can get this thing to charge before it dies. But after I get that, I will share my screen with you guys and I'll show you.
Nice.
what
I
I'm
was
doing.
looking at the winning team from last night and the $5 that won $8,000. It was like stacking Paul George and Russ at their ADPs, or fading Mobley, taking Paul George at 3. That was really common. Getting
Mhm.
Zach Collins at ADP, getting Keldon Johnson to fall a little bit, and then just taking Eric Gordon and Grayson Allen.
I was
Like
high on
very simple
Eric Gordon.
team, like no scrolling down at all.
Yeah,
Just
I think
like
on most nights, I think tonight is a bit of an outlier. Also, yes,
could
I'm
have just
probably not
went
looking down because
like
my
this
laptop
person
is- yeah.
could have just had George over Mobley and then auto drafted everything else by ADP and probably got this team, which is impressive. Last night, if you look at the distribution of my lineups, I was pretty happy with this. I just had a little bit too much Julius Randle and
Let's see
Brunson.
your highest scoring lineup. You got Hartenstein on a swap?
No, I took him.
Wow, Deeze knows ball. He knows better.
Bro, I'm literally out here fucking listening to Mike Gallagher and Dink break down the slate 5 o'clock. And then I'm just like, who's somebody you could need down here like 36? So yeah, I took him on a couple.
I'm really surprised that the winning lineup didn't have KD. I was like certain that KD was gonna, and I was getting really upset because I think I only got literally 4 drafts where I got the first pick. I was like, oh, I'm gonna have a cook night anyway.
And then
And,
none of these, the top 10 had KD. You know, it was all Paul George, Westbrook for the most part. And then there was this Paul George, Nurkic. But it makes sense, like on a 3-game slate, you know, you're thinking, okay, if KD fails, like you want to have people from Phoenix, right? Like somebody's going to have to do something on Phoenix. And then watching that Spurs game in the last quarter when they came back, like they were down 20. I almost turned the game off. I was like, oh, fuck. And then next thing I know, I checked Keldon Johnson's points and was like, wait, what just happened? We just shot up the leaderboard. So it's really weird for me as someone who hasn't played NBA like DFS in a while to come back and be like, oh, the Spurs are a bad defense that we like to target now. Like they're not the Spurs anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's really a big mind fuck. Like I'm used to looking for I don't know, like Brooklyn and Orlando and I don't know, other teams. But this year it looks like Washington is the team that we want to play everybody against.
this might be a redacted take, but I feel like sometimes people put too much emphasis into individual lineups, or excuse me, individual matchups for a game. Is that a bad take? Is that redacted?
No, I agree. I actually don't take defense in versus position into account at all in my projections.
I think team defense is a lot more important. Like, are these guys switching? You know, are they? Do teams have a? I actually don't do this at all because I'm redacted. I don't know how to calculate this, but are they having like drop offs at pace when they play these people? This is what, dude. I have so much Paulo Bachero and best ball, and I just got the scouting report on him last night. He's fucking he got me a Chick-fil-A sandwich because he kept missing free throws, dude. Not good. We hate to see it.
Paulo is somebody I kept taking a lot last night too. He was going like 14, 15, a little bit after ADP. Just like scoop this up, scoop that up. Do we want to hop in any of these drafts?
Sure.
See what the lay of the land is looking like for Andy. So Andy is still waiting for some big projections to come out, and his thing keeps cutting in and out. But I'm down to hop in.
With Andy
Sorry,
right
yeah,
now.
I'm having my
actually.
laptop is
Are you-
really struggling. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right,
I'm in
I
a draft
think
with you.
I'm now
actually-
charging. I'm at like 6% battery, and so there's a chance that my laptop just.
So we'll
dies.
find out real soon.
It's plugged in. It says it's charging.
Do you want to
but I don't
share your
believe it.
screen in a draft, or you want me to draft one?
Do we rip one?
Yeah. Here, let me.
We can just rip one, so we're not all fighting each other, and then draft it based
Yeah,
off
you-
of
I'm in
people we
you
like.
can
I'm
go
in
for
2
it.
separate drafts with Andy right now.
All right, we'll do
yeah.
a full court press since it's a 12-man, and it's a pretty big slate, so this will give us more of a lay of the land. The instant.
also
So one
know-
thing I've been really impressed about with Underdog NBA is how many no Badgers there are. Now, granted, this one is all red Badgers and this 12-man, but when I'm ripping these 6-man, like I've had a few where I'm the only red badge, and I don't know anything about NBA, but it just gets me excited when I look at the top of the lobby and there's no badges. I'm just like, fuck yeah. Like Wemby was going at 2 in some of these drafts, and I'm just loving
Dude,
it.
Can we
Man.
get a chat feature in the drafts? Can we get a
Dude,
chat
we'll ruin
feature?
it. We'll ruin it, man. I'll get
No,
banned after.
I think they should have emoji reactions.
Yeah, I
You
think you're
can,
talking
like,
about
emote
that.
with like a shit emoji or something, but chat
That's
ice-
actually really funny.
The icicle or the snowflake.
Imagine drafting someone and the guy that's drafting right after you hits you with the crying eyes emoji.
Oh, dude, they need to put the middle finger emoji in there, and you're just like, Pete was mentioning on the club how I took a naked Dak from him last week, and he was still thinking about it because he had CD Lamb and was stacking the game. And I was just like, yeah, that's me in these dog bowls. Absolutely just taking the quarterback with the highest projection, even if it's unstacked.
So people talk about stacking and stuff in the NBA. Obviously, you can't really stack, but one thing I've noticed is I feel really shit if I have like I don't feel bad if I have like a big man and like a point guard or like a forward from a team. But if I'm taking like a point guard and a forward, I'm like, there's only so many points to go around. But if it's like Tyrese Halliburton, for instance, who's I feel like more assist driven than scoring driven, there's like a lot of different nuance. I feel like to stacking in the NBA versus the NFL.
Yeah, my feeling on stacking is I don't really care about it either way.
Yeah.
I will. I think it's just like uncorrelated enough that it's just kind of like who cares. Um, you'll get some players who you're gonna like maybe don't want both of them on the same team. Like sometimes I'll get like Siakam and Scotty Barnes. I'm like, this doesn't feel great. Uh, but I definitely don't really ever try to do like bringbacks or anything like that. Um, I really really don't care about that stuff.
My gut when I'm ripping them by hand is just like, I need a bring back. I'm like, okay, if I'm taking, it's just such a bad default way of approaching any DFS. But it's like, if I'm taking Anthony Davis tonight and he's on, Lakers versus LAC, I am so much more happy to click on Paul George or Russ Westbrook in toward the end of the draft than I am if I don't have Anthony Davis or LeBron. Like I build up this narrative in my head of like, okay, well, Westbrook used to be on the Lakers and now he's playing against the Lakers in LA for everyone and their fans to watch. Like if LeBron goes off on it, West, you want to keep up? Like he wouldn't just let LeBron go off like that, would he? Like I need, I play that scenario in my head too much. Whereas like maybe with Boston Indy, I don't think that way. Like if I get Porzingis, I'm not like, oh, I need to bring this back. Um, but like Atlanta and Washington, that's one where like if I take Trae Young or Murray, then I kind of want Kuzma or Poole, thinking like, okay, this is the best game environment from a over under perspective. And if these teams keep up, like, isn't it somewhat correlated that if Poole is actually hitting shots, then somebody on Atlanta has to keep up with him? I don't know. And then stacking the teammates, it's like I don't want two big men, obviously, but I took Bain and Jackson together on a few on Monday, and like that worked out pretty well. They both had decent games, and that was something that was unintuitive to me given the positions they play. That like, oh, they both could, do pretty well.
Yeah, yeah. In my experience, it like every once in a while it matters, but I haven't seen enough evidence one way or another to care too much.
Is there a lot of
Porzingis
like
dropping 30s.
combinatorial data out on NBA? Like I know with best ball, feels like last year we started to really see a big push of analyzing like the previous season's worth of data. We saw the data bowl and people coming up with some more new novel metrics and trying to find alpha that way. Like, are we seeing the same on the underdog NBA side of things? I guess I'm not really as tuned in with that community as I am the NFL side.
Not really. There's like some guys who are doing cool stuff. I think like John Boy is one guy who like is doing a lot of data stuff, and he's looking into like kind of upside of players and how often are they getting there on a given night and things like that. But
I just realized I
there
didn't tweet
really
out the fucking thing.
there really isn't that much as far as like data or information out there as what's good. I think that's part of what the fun is like it's pretty underexplored. No one really knows what's
I
what's
thought
right
I
or
had
wrong.
a tweet ready and sent, and I'm an idiot.
It's like Antarctica.
Oh well.
No one really knows what's going on there.
All right, so my
It's
pick here,
unexplored
I got
territory.
Jokic. I don't want Jalen Brown at 21.8. I do like taking Scotty Barnes here. Siakam, I feel like I'd rather have Scotty Barnes over Siakam. I don't know if that's right or wrong.
Yeah, I think I like Scotty like a little. I basically like them the same. I think it doesn't really matter.
And then with RJ Barrett being out, does that make you want to take Randall? I know we were talking about that game being gross. Is there anything really
I think
changing
there's
there?
probably like other guys who I still like more. Like, I mean,
Like,
hell, I would take Jimmy Butler
nice.
over any of those
Are you
guys. I think,
taking
honestly.
Zion at ADP or is he off
I am
your?
taking Zion.
He's just
Not
fun to
really.
pick. Like,
He is fun to pick. I'm not
He's
sure.
fat.
I've been
Yeah,
taking
he
a
just
little
like hasn't looked
Cade
very good. Yeah,
around
I like
here.
Cade. But
And I
I
just
think
feel,
Jimmy is like kind of the guy at this price.
all right, we'll take Jimmy now that he's probable.
Yeah, I
Maybe
think we're
people
gonna
aren't going to
see
want to play
his.
Jimmy because he burned them on Monday.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see his numbers or his ADP shoot
Do
up
we see
over
a
the
lot of
next
that
bit.
in the NBA streets where like one player just underperforms on a night where they're like Jalen Brown? Okay, like on Monday, Jalen Brown was 32. He was pretty much going in the 6th round. Today, he's going. I've seen him. Someone posted a screenshot of someone taking him at 2 overall, which is insane. But like I've seen him go in the teens in my own drafts. Uh, if Jalen Brown sucks tonight, like is he going back to the 32 and 36 bucket?
100%.
Like, is
Yeah,
that just what happens here where like you just have
yeah.
one player who goes off? Like Cam Thomas was one, right? Where he had, I mean, I guess he still put up 33 points just with no peripherals, but like I find it hard to click Cam Thomas. And I get scared when I look at people and all their points are coming from actual points and they're not getting like rebounds or assists or any peripherals. But people steam them up anyway.
Yeah, that's I think it's something that people do. Like they'll like box score watch really really hard in these, and I think that's actually one thing where you can like really have an edge is just like, and that's one of the reasons I like drafting really early as well, when
Mm-hmm.
ADPs are like super not formalized and like kind of the easiest way to make decisions is just like click on the player and just see what they did in their last 3 games. Um, and that's where like if you have your own projections that don't necessarily care that much about what they've done in the last 3 games, you can kind of get a bit of an edge. Um,
There's so much recency bias in the underdog
yeah.
game log. Like I even
Oh
noticed it
yeah.
for NFL. Like
Oh yeah. Big
Devonte
time. Like CD
Adams, you look at
Lamb and
his.
yeah.
Yeah, Devonte Adams right now, you look at that game log, you're like, dude, like I might take Rashid Shaheed. Like, I don't know. Soby got the Jamal Murray. When you
I've been
cooking up
taking a
over
lot
there?
of Jamal Murray. I listened to a podcast, the Establish the Run podcast, and I think it was Dink saying that a lot of Denver fans are calling this the year of Jamal. So
Oh,
what can I say? You know,
I haven't heard that one. Did
yeah.
you unlock the goat horns for winning the dog bowl, Soby?
I don't know, dude. I don't give a fuck about the dog bowl. I'm unprofitable in NBA. This shit keeps me infinite.
So Soby wins a dog bowl qualifier, which is like I would trade a month of profitable NBA nights for a dog bowl Q spot. And
Dude,
Soby's
every
just,
day I'm checking the fucking leaderboards and who's there. Andy 8052.
It's
Chad.
been I've been pretty hot to start the season. I'm tied with T-Box for
T-Box.
the second most top 20 finishes so far
So
behind
T-Box got
Uh
Pores at 19. Sabonis.
is
Do
Johnny
you look
Football
at
crushing it? Who's number one right now? Is it Johnny Football?
this guy Cowboys something. Um,
No.
that's impressive that someone named Cowboys
yeah.
is crushing the NBA.
Johnny Football is doing well though. He had a good night last night. But I haven't gotten any like crazy first place finishes or anything. Just a lot of like consistent top 20, which is, a good problem to have.
The chat's
That's
telling
really
me I
nice.
need to bring up the Solana chart real quick while
Oh yeah,
we're
I think
drafting.
it's going parabolic.
It
It's
is.
up 20% on the day right now.
Do I sell? I
That's
have a lot of Solana.
I literally was buying Solana at like $30. I was texting Soby like last week. What's the best way to buy Solana with ETH? Soby's like, oh, this Mayan finance shit. I'm like, all right, bet.
Yeah, I told him to use it. Didn't even use it myself. I fucking hate myself.
I just dislike how little I bought relative to how much I wanted. Yeah, but Solana right now, whew. I drew a purple box. That's about the only TA I have on the chart. One line. Oh, I have another line up here. So yeah, we can't sell it till $135. We're basically
Okay.
locked in.
All right, I'm holding till 135. Deal.
This is resistance here at 45, and then 80, and then 130. So
All right, so we buy the dip here now.
Dude, that card. Look at that, dude. That's sexy.
we buy the first dip where it goes under 35 if we get that again.
Yeah, dude, I had a 6-figure bid for Solana at $31, and it went down to like 31.5 or something, and it didn't
get
fill
filled?
the other day. I was devastated.
It just looks like the clear momentum trade to me. I was talking to a buddy from high school who doesn't own crypto about crypto, and he was asking about Solana. And I was like, okay, is this a top signal or is this? It's early. Like,
Yeah, we're so early.
maybe he's gonna make money. I
Does
got a
he
good
watch
pick.
him
Dude,
dip
I
there?
like Russell Westbrook at 44. That would have been nice.
Yeah, that's a really nice number for him.
So I'm looking at. I like the Chicago players, like Levine, Vooch, DeRozan, just for their upside. Kind of lost down here. I kind of don't mind Eaton. I'm so used to the 6-mans, dude. This does get you. I
Yeah,
haven't
wait,
clicked on
let's see.
Jalen Duren once.
All right, hold on.
I
I
don't even
like
know if he's gonna
Vooch.
play.
I like Chet Holmgren. Asar Thompson is too high to take him, but I do like him.
Chet looks like the one.
Yeah, I think he is. And then you hope you get like Zach LaVine coming back or something, or Jalen Brunson is another one that I like.
Yeah, we were taking Jalen Brunson at like 8 yesterday, so it feels crazy that on a 13 game we're like, hey, we don't need him.
Yeah, what are we in that range? Yeah, right around here is where I would take Brunson.
When LaMelo Ball gets early foul trouble and you have a ton of them, and then you just watch Terry Rozier play 40 minutes.
Yeah,
It feels good.
Scary Terry is another one that I like. Is Duran still on the board?
Yeah.
He wasn't at shoot around, so there's a chance he doesn't play, which I think is why he's been sliding.
Do you like Ayton? I mean, he's coming off this 23 rebound game.
Dominating. Yeah, I do. He's someone who I think gets like memed pretty hard, but he definitely puts up fantasy stats.
Aiden?
Yeah.
I just like having one of those Chicago guys. Like, they're definitely ones I don't feel great stacking. Like, I don't want to take Levine and DeMar. That feels weird.
Mm-hmm.
But if I get one of them, it's like, okay, well, this guy could get me 50 points, and that I don't need to worry about it. Like, can Chris Paul get 50 points? You mentioned you were taking him, but like, I get worried.
You don't need it. I think in the 12-mans, you need your 6th round pick to get you. You need your worst player can get you 35 points and you can still win.
Had some bones last night. One of the more fun names.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, I
could
see
a lot
Terry.
of Dame Lillard on this slate.
Dame is a tough click for me. I don't know why. I have when I'm manually drafting these, like, I don't click him.
Is it because when you did click him, he had like the worst game of his career?
No, I just, for whatever reason, like, look at him on Milwaukee and I'm like, yeah, I don't want him. I'm like, I'm gonna take Giannis or nobody. It's probably really fucking stupid.
I think the guy you got to take, dude, is Anthony Edwards.
Well, yeah, but the price is a little different too.
That's true. Oh no, it's
well, I
about
guess
the same.
they're
It's like 12, 15.
Yeah. I feel like I've seen Edwards go at like the 20th more, whereas like I see Dame going at like 12.
Yeah, I'm
Andy,
not
how
sure
do you-
Dame's really going to be in my player pool too much.
Oh, I'm fading Andy's fucking square roots. Doesn't feel good.
Soby just X'd out Dame out of his player pool too. He's like, all right, like
Oops. He's gone. Andy, how are you playing like these injury designations? Because this shit is fucking confusing, man. Like, I don't even think a questionable tag means anything in the NBA. Like, I don't really know what the hell's going
Yeah, so
on.
I think it depends on the player. Like Halliburton last year was questionable a lot, and it just like didn't matter. He played all the time questionable. Meanwhile, I think like if you have a midday guy who gets downgraded to like being questionable, I think that that's more worrisome normally. Um, like generally could mean that there's a better chance they're actually not going to play. Um, but yeah, I think it really depends. But like I was saying, like tonight, I think that Halliburton, he's one where like I like him and I think he's going to play. I kind of feel the same with Trey Young. I have a ton of those guys, Halliburton, Trey Young.
They
I
were
just think
some of my favorite clicks in the first 5 drafts I did.
yeah.
People let them slip. I got Halliburton at 29 in that screenshot I sent. Like I was like, okay,
It's
like,
insane.
and it's a pretty good swap option at 29 too. How do you set up your late swaps? Like say there's a day like today where you have multiple Q players and they don't have a clear backup or like a one-to-one swap that you want to get exposure to. Do you just make a stand on somebody and or make a stand on like 3 to 5 people and just put them at the top of your swap rankings and basically see what happens? Or how do
Pretty
you
much. I think like on a night like tonight, there's going to be so much variance in the last round of these 6-man tournaments
Mhm.
that I think you can just like upload your rankings and then just let it swap, and you'll probably like you're not going to get the same player in every single one. Like I think especially for swap rankings, like I like to have it be very ADP dependent, just
Mhm.
so if the guy who was going 28 ADP like doesn't get drafted in that draft, like one of these particular drafts, you get them in the swap, and like that's going to be just an added layer of like randomness into what you're getting.
Got you. Just want to get unique while
Yeah.
keeping the upside, basically.
Yeah, because like if you put a guy who was almost never getting drafted as your like top swap choice, then you end up with him on like half your fucking teams, and if he has a bad night,
Yes.
you get tanked. And I just think like I'm also someone who I generally don't like having crazy high exposures to any given player. My strategy is not to try to have you know take down first, second, third, fourth, fifth because I only ever drafted the one guy who I think is going to drop 70. Um, my strategy is much more get exposure to everyone who I think is good or could potentially be good, and like go from there.
Just hope it's in the right combination. Yeah, that was one of my
Yeah,
questions about just thinking about ownership as a whole. Like, you don't want to see probably 50% plus of anybody unless it's very clear that like this person is underpriced and they're going around too late.
yeah. I have to have like really insane conviction on them. Even in that case, like I think tonight probably the two players who I feel really strongly about being mispriced are Halliburton and Trey Young with their I think it's
Mhm.
because of their injury designations. And like
So would you do over like 40% on either of them, or is that too high?
probably not. I think like if I just let my projections run and draft them, I would get over 40%, but I manually will stop myself because
Okay.
I don't like I've had bad experiences with nights like that. And there's the
Who are we
chance.
taking here? Second to last pick. It's kind of gross.
Oof, wow, yeah. MPJ is a fun one.
Yeah, I have
Walker Kessler
Jokic.
is a
Like
fun
maybe
one.
just he gets fed, gets a
Um
bunch of assists from him.
Jakob Pertl isn't awful.
Like I kind of don't mind Clint Capella.
Yeah, Clint Capella's not
I'm
bad.
gonna do Clint. I have this really strong desire to have at least one Hawks player on any team, and I'm like, okay,
Just
well
because
I
the
didn't.
total's so ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, well I didn't get Murray or Young. Like, let me take Clint. I don't know who else I could have taken. I think yeah, Jalen Johnson's gone, and DeAndre Hunter I don't think is gonna be who we need, but he could
No,
be.
I don't think so. I wouldn't bet on it.
I want to rip a 6-man here and see what we get. it'll be something without any of us in it. It'll be just me. I think these drafts, I love how fast paced I can just grind out so many of these NBA drafts by hand while I'm waiting for dog bowls, which is what I've been doing. It's like I'm sitting here, I'll wait for a dog bowl to fill, and I'll do like 3 of these $5 at once. And yeah, it's a nice way to pass the time, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I'm like actually dialed in. I don't know. NBA is gonna be a problem for me, man. This is really addicting. Like I'm fucking sitting here going through the box scores, looking at minutes. Then I'm fucking going to Roto Grinders, looking at lineups. I'm looking at the prices players are because I don't really know. Like if I look at the Nets, I have no like, oh, Cam Thomas versus Michael Bridges versus Ben Simmons. Like, how good are these players? So I'm just going off the fucking DraftKings prices. I'm like, oh well, like, you know, Bridges is 8.1K and the others are like under 7. Like he looks like the guy I want on Brooklyn. And that's probably a really stupid way of going about this, but that's been how I've been trying to get my head around like what is the relative value.
I don't know. I think in a lot of ways, like that's actually an advantage, which maybe sounds like coping, but like I think being able to go into it not being like crazy opinionated about whether or not a player is good is like actually really valuable because it lets you just objectively look at the stats. And I think that's one thing where basketball is so different from football is like when you know someone's fantasy points per minute and how many minutes they're going to play, like you can really create very nice standard deviations of like this is what their worst case is. If they don't get injured, this is what their best case is. And like it's really hard. It's rare for them to go totally out of bounds. Like it has to be an anomaly game. Whereas the
like
NFL,
an injury or
yeah. Whereas the NFL, it's so much more random. And so I think that like
shout out Devontae Adams.
Yeah, for real. And so I
Are you
think
taking
that like
Jaren Jackson here, or are you taking the Trae Young tier?
I would take Jaren Jackson and hope that you get Trae Young next.
Because I've been doing a little bit of like Jackson or Bane with Laurie, kind of in that stupid game stack mentality of like, oh shit, they're in the same game and they're next to each other. Same with like Anthony Edwards and Jokic, right? Like I'm like, oh well, what if, what if they go off and you need that? I'll do a Trae Young here, assuming it gets back to me though. But yeah, I think I have a bad, like, okay, I started out with Denver, Memphis. I'm like, oh, well, if Minnesota or Utah guys are studs are available right here, like I'm going to take them and go into that game.
Yeah, the other reason I don't like doing that as much in basketball is like, and it sounds kind of silly, but I think that there's a decent chance that a lot of other people also are thinking that way and like are doing the same thing. And so I think it makes you slightly less unique to
Is your read that
game stack?
Most people do hand builds or auto drafts? Because my original thought was I'm seeing you do auto drafts. I'm seeing T-Box do auto drafts. I go in the Badge Bros. It seems like a lot of them are doing auto drafts. So in my head, I was like, okay, if I do game stacks, then that's uniquer because I'm not auto drafting the best plays based off projections.
No, I think a lot of people still hand build. We're seeing more people this year auto draft for sure. We're seeing more NFL people come over and auto draft. I have no idea whether or not they've been profitable so far in doing that.
Like I won't take Jaylen Brown here. I don't love Siakam either. Sometimes I feel forced to take him, but then there's times right here where I just like scroll down to, I don't know. My head goes to Cade Cunningham.
I think that's totally valid to like take Cade Cunningham.
Like you could take like Cade and Jimmy at 23 and 26, and then it's like
I've been ending up with just like a fuck ton of Paul George there.
I just saw fucking.
I got Paul George in like every draft. Like my first 5. What did you say, Soby?
I just saw Andy take Jimmy at 21. Andy's gonna single-handedly raise this man.
This guy just took Jimmy from me. Cowboys is listening in. This is the most winning player you said in NBA.
Yes, he's currently the best NBA player.
There you go. That he's taken Jimmy at 20.
Rankings.
He's taking Jimmy at
No,
25.
he took
He's
Cam
taking.
Thomas at 24. That's crazy. I do think that he's been hammering Cam Thomas, which is one of the reasons that he's been winning
He's
so
doing
much.
well.
Yeah,
He's just riding the train. Like he has Cam Thomas at like 21 on his
it's
sheet.
like
and
a
he's
dolphin fanatic.
Dolphin
on
fanatic.
draft. Yeah, It's just
Cam Thomas fanatic.
Yeah.
I like that.
Cam Thomas is a funny ass player because you look at his stat sheet, it'll be like 40 points, 0 rebounds, 1 assist. Just pure hooper.
Is Cam Thomas like a Jordan Poole type or no? Where he's like a good fantasy player
Hilarious.
sometimes, but you watch him play basketball and you're like, what is going on?
No, I think I don't think we have enough evidence to think that he's not like a winning player in the same way that we kind of feel about Jordan Poole.
Gotcha.
It's hard to say. He's really only ever been on shit teams on the Nets, and like, I mean, he scores points. He gets buckets, so it's hard to say. I don't know.
This is a classic spot where I want Poole or Kuzma because I have Trae Young. It's like, is that ideal? I don't know.
Dude, the Jordan Poole experience is hilarious, though. Watching this man play basketball is funny as fuck.
Like, what if Jordan Poole against the Hawks is who you need tonight?
It'd be
It's gonna
something.
be such a shootout game. I just want to catch a Sacramento Kings 175-point game again. They had a game against the Clippers last year where it was literally 175 to like 176 or something. That's the crazy thing about the NBA is like you have it. I haven't noticed this yet, but there hasn't like because it's still so early in the season. I guess you had that big kind of Cade game, and you had didn't Dame have like 40 or something? But you haven't had any crazy massive games from players here.
The highest scoring game
or
so
Luka.
far was Zach LaVine's 51 with 0 assists. Total Chad.
Total Chad. He said, I'm gonna do it myself.
Yeah, they lost. He said, I'm gonna do it myself, and they lost.
But Luka, dude, Luka just pads the fucking stats. This is the thing about NBA that I am okay at is it's a lot more deterministic in the sense of like the best players are always going to perform the highest. Like it's not that there's not that much variance, but with DFS where it becomes hard for me as someone that like I think I'm too opinionated on players. Like I think I go into drafts and I go like this guy's a fucking dog. I need to click him instead of just understanding like
You're like Anthony Edwards. I have the top shot moment of the dunk. Like this is him.
This is him. And I keep kicking fucking. I see Jamal Murray. I go, it's the year of Jamal, and I fucking click him. And this time I click Cam Thomas instead. But that's the thing is I do think Andy, you're right. Like NBA is all about projecting minutes, right? Because you just need to be on the court. There's only 5 people on the court, and I'm wondering if there's a significant edge on the smaller slates if you can actually figure out who are going to be the rotational guys that get a lot of the minutes, right? Like the Jordan Goodwins or Grayson Allens that go from. Maybe typically they pay 15 minutes to 20 minutes, and all of a sudden they're playing 35 minutes because of it's a back-to-back or whatever.
No, definitely. I think that's a big part of it. Like, and again, like that's
Grayson Allen had 37 last night.
Yeah, like if you projected, I mean, you knew he was going to play a lot of minutes, and he's one where he had like the game of his life as far as his like production goes.
Yeah, block, 7 rebounds.
Like, on nights like this, that's where I feel like there's just not quite that same amount of skill expression because like you kind of know what you're getting, and like all of the guys you're drafting, they're going to play 30 minutes. You kind of know a lot of different things about them, and then it's just like, can they get lucky? Can you get lucky? And so
I hope I get lucky today, dude. I feel it. I feel a first place finish for the kid today.
How important do you feel like hitting a GM is in NBA versus NFL? Because in NFL, it feels like we were talking about volatility earlier, and you get Kelsey plus Mahomes plus Tyreek or something, but it really, you need the rest of your team to do shit too. Like here, if I get Anthony Davis and Giannis at 6'7", for example, I'm not saying that I will or anything, but like it feels like the GMs are much more potent in NBA from my gut take.
Yeah.
And seeing some of the winners over the last week, like some of them are when the studs just fall like 2 or 3 spots in the 6-person draft, and then they get a unique combo that they both put up 50 plus.
Yeah, I think if you told me if I only had the option, let's just say, to draft purely based on ADP, like just auto draft best player available ADP, or draft purely based on like my projection output, I would choose to draft on ADP. I think that like the ADP like is pretty efficient. It's pretty good, and just like getting unique, like nothing gets you unique better than drafting players past ADP. And it, not every single night, but time and time again, when you like looking at last night's winner and looking at winners from a lot of these, the best lineups are the ones that just like, got this guy a few picks past ADP, got this guy a few picks past ADP, and just like,
That's how it was last night. I mean,
Yeah.
it was literally like he took Paul George over Mobley, which was against ADP, and then every other pick was just like, well, what was the best thing available? Send it.
yeah. And like, so tonight probably won't be that. This is like generally not the kind of slate where you're going to get an output like that, but like it could be. And so I think that I think people discredit it a little bit too much.
How much has ADP changed too? Like right now we see Trey at 16.4, Tyrese at 19. I think that was about where they were at 3 hours ago when I was
I don't think
drafting.
it'll really change that much, to be honest with you.
And even if Trey like gets a probable lean, like is he not going to go past like 14, or like he's not going to go ahead of Laurie?
I think the biggest mover for ADP typically is ETR rankings.
Ooh.
And they just dropped, right?
Yeah, and so I mean
let me pull
ETR
'em up.
does have Trey at 7 overall. It has him very high.
So he could get some steam.
Halliburton
He's
not
about to
quite as
start
much.
moving.
I'll pull up the FanDuel projections here. I like this. I think they have like a new, where was it? I was looking at it, beta projection display. This one. It's a little better. So you got Luka, Jokic, AD, Giannis, Shai, Sabonis. That's pretty.
Damn.
They have Tatum low. They have Curry a little low. They have Bane up. Bane feels
Dude,
high.
Sanguini, dude. I have a lot of Sanguini on fucking.
Is that this guy?
Alperen
Alperen?
Şengün.
Sanguini? Like he's a fucking pasta noodle?
I have like 40 or 30% exposure to that kid on a best ball.
So I'm currently
They have Cade way high, dude. It's over.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I've
They have
currently
Cade,
done 73 hump days, and I just calculated my exposures, and I have over 50% Trey Young. So like,
Damn.
that's
Shout
not
out
good.
ATL, baby.
It's like I have Tatum here, so I won't do pores. I'll do like ball Halliburton.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
But that's one
Where
where
they
if
have-
I was not hand building it, then I would have had pores.
Where they have Anthony Edwards on there, dude, because I got a lot of that guy right now. Oh, way too low.
He's low. He's at 39.6.
Damn.
Paul George is ahead of Anthony Edwards. I don't know how I feel about that.
Paul George was balling his ass off last night, though.
So when
I
you
think
use,
there's like with the chance that Kawhi doesn't play, I think it's interesting. Paul George, I have a good amount of him. I have 37%. Actually, we have a lot of Paul George, I guess.
they have Zach LaVine pretty high. See him down here. He's ahead of Zion and Jamal and DeRozan. They got Mobley. They have Rozier kind of high too. Seems, at least as I scroll down here. They have Westbrook a little low from where I was taking him. I mean, yeah, like some of these players. There's Clint. I was going down to see who we were drafting in the 9 or the 12 mans, the $9 Keegan Murray. So what I'll do this tonight or right after we end this stream is I take the points, the ceiling, divide it by 2, put the number to the left of the player, and then I go to my rankings. I just click the plus button on every person one by one, and then I drag them to where I want, and then I see what happens.
So I'll share with you if you want these. I have a Google sheet where you can like import ETR's rankings and the underdog rankings, and then it'll give you a new exportable underdog thing that you can upload.
That sounds nice. I got your
Oh, so you offered
extension.
it to Z's, but not
I got the
unprofitable
extension
I'll give it
from
to
the
you,
Badge
so-
Bros chat, but I haven't whipped it out yet.
Yeah, the
But for the
extension's
people who
fun.
don't know, Andy has an auto entering extension if you don't want to hand enter 150 plus lineups. Which T-Box did the math on how much time he spends hand entering lineups. It was a sizable amount of time when he extrapolated it out.
Dude, it's like, yeah, it's a
I was-
serious amount of time.
I was like, oh shit. I'm gonna take the Cade here. Think I'm gonna do Jamal Cade. Maybe I don't know. My mind is also like I want a Chicago player. I'm gonna just do Jamal Cade. But I feel like this when I'm hand building them today, I'm gonna be way more likely to click like 2 or 3 people past 32 and just see what happens because I didn't do that enough on Monday. And let me pull up so make sure I'm not because I only entered 20 of these. Oh yeah, it was the swaps. People got the Jaylen Brown swap. That was it.
Yeah.
The Jaylen Brown swap, Tyler Hero swap. This is what won the money. And then Murray went it free. So it's basically he got 3 players past 30, like 32 with the 2 swaps and Murray. And then that's what it took with 3 studs. So I'm going to definitely be sprinkling that in. I learned that. Here's Andy at 7th. No swaps, just
no swaps.
That looks like a pretty
Yeah, Jimmy Butler fucked me. If he had played a
Oh
real
yeah,
game,
Jimmy, dude. Oh my god,
I think I would have won if he had played.
Holy shit! Yeah, you were only 13 behind first with Jimmy putting up 25. But you didn't get
it was a really
anything
good
crazy like off the board or value here, right? Like you got
No.
Jackson at 3 past. Like this is what we're talking about with the ADP. It's like you got Davis at 4, Curry at 9, Jaren fell 3 past. You got Jimmy right where he went. Laurie fell 1, and Jaylen like perfectly looks like a normal team. And then it just
that could have been it was an auto draft, but like it could have been an auto draft, you know?
Yeah, like and that's the thing I like about the NBA that I'm learning about. Like it's not I don't know, it feels a lot more predictable than the NFL, which it is. So I'm really enjoying for anyone who listens to this and hasn't dabbled in NBA, like just try it because I think you'll be surprised at how much fun it is, even if you know literally nothing.
Yeah, the sweats are really fun. It's fun to watch your team go up and down. I think the other thing that I like about it, and I will say like I do think that some amount of like the predictability is also like contingent on volume though, which is I think one of the challenges is like entering one auto drafted lineup versus 150. Like the 150 just has such a massive advantage because everything is so top heavy as far as getting first place that like getting 150 bullets of like, you know, these are the potential 36 guys you need. Let's get every possible combination that you can. Is just like really, really valuable versus just being like, oh, here's my shot. So I would definitely recommend if you're like interested but don't want to drop, you know, hundreds of dollars to max enter these things or enter a lot. They normally release some smaller tournaments every day.
The buzzer beater.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
I would recommend trying one of those or like one of the single entries when they
The
release
buzzer beater costs $60 to enter, max enter. It's $3 an entry, 20 entry max. I think that's the most like beginner friendly format possible. You know that you'll be able to get 20 in. It's not too big of a hurdle to cross. You know, no one will have more, and then it's cheap enough that you don't feel bad ripping the volume either.
Yeah, and
like 150 at $9.
Like practicing that, like, okay, I'm doing multiple lineups. How am I getting unique? How am I building different outcomes and stuff?
That's where I've been. I think tonight will be the first day I deposit a little more and just fully ape into this 6-man $5. But I'm still not feeling confident enough to do 150 of the $9. Like I'm still not there, but maybe next week. I don't really have too much else to talk about for NBA. I think it's just been a lot more fun than I thought it would be. Like I'm used to DFS NBA where you're worried about ownership and you're like, oh man, like Julius Randle last night, he's projecting at 45% ownership. And you're like, okay, he's a good play, but it's Julius Randle at 45% ownership. And then like, there's none of that in this. It's like, well, at the most, the player is owned on 1 out of 6 teams. And if you have a stand on a player, you can own that person on 1 out of 3 teams. And now you have double the field, that player. And it's just a lot more simple, I think, to take a stand and not have to worry so much about all the other variables which plague NBA DFS on DraftKings and FanDuel.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that it's super fun. And I think it, to me, is a little bit more fun than the NFL as far as just like the way that it's structured and stuff.
The daily sweat is really what does it
Yeah.
for me. It's the fact that every day I get to open this shit up and just be like, I have a chance to win. Like the NFL is, I spend all week drafting lineups, and some days by 1:30, I know it's over. Like when I fade CD Lamb on every team and he has 100 yards and 2 touchdowns at like halftime, I'm just like, yeah, it's not looking good for your boy. Whereas like NBA is like, well, there's tomorrow. So yeah, I'll wrap this up then. Soby, any closing thoughts? Any flags you want to plant tonight? Like, what's your favorite Kings player? Because it has to be
Keegan
Sabonis,
Murray.
not Sabonis. Is it Keegan?
It's Keegan Murray for me. Sabonis, I think, might have a good game. Sabonis is a point guard, low key. So I think he might have a good game, but he's been historically bullied by Kevon Looney on the boards. So I'm planting my flag on Keegan Murray. And Keegan Murray, I feel like I love grabbing like Cade and Keegan Murray at the end, where they're going.
Are you taking Keegan Murray in the 6-man, Zandy? Is he in your pool, or is that Soby homerism?
No, he's not in my player pool. Let's see.
He's way down here at
Yeah.
36. Like you gotta scroll past Ayton, Paul, Miles. Like you gotta get down here.
I think that
With
you
Fox
could, like,
gone, there's a bunch of shots for him there.
yeah, I think
Like,
you
that's
can make
where
the
his-
case for it. I just think that, like, the range of outcomes where he is one of the 10 highest scoring fantasy players, it's just like hard to, because I think that's the
Yeah.
other thing too you have to think about with this is it's not the same as regular NBA DFS where you need them to hit comparatively to their, like, value or their
price.
cost. And
Yeah.
so, like, you really need
That's a good
your
point.
in like the 6-man, you need your 6th round player to to produce as a 1st round player because there's so many good players on a night like tonight. And so it's like, yeah, I think Keegan Murray will probably have a good night, but is he going to have a 60 fantasy point night? Like, maybe, but what are the odds? Probably pretty low. And so there's just other guys I'd rather take.
Like Scotty Barnes. I'm gonna end up with too much of fucking Scotty Barnes.
I love Scotty.
Are you ever taking Trae Young and Murray on a team together on purpose, or is that only accidental auto drafting?
No, only by accident. I think that's
Okay.
actually a combo that I would pretty actively want to try to avoid if given the
Yeah, it
opportunity.
feels like one where I kind of want one or the other on every team I do,
Yeah.
but I don't want them on both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We'll wrap this up then. We have to get going, make sure that we enter with all these new projections and hopefully win some money tonight. I'm going to take too much Cade Cunningham because he's going to be the Danny Jones of NBA DFS for me, where
Anthony Edwards, dude.
I keep taking him and he's going to underperform, but he's going to give me that 165 fantasy point game where I take him forever after. But yeah, this has been fun. We'll be back tomorrow, or not tomorrow, next week, probably with NFL, but we'll see how the vibes are. I'm still focused mostly on NFL. This is now like a fun daily side quest that I'm embarking on. But if I do better in this than NFL, maybe this will become my full-time MB, or this will be like my full-time sports thinking rather than the NFL. So curious to see how that plays out, but it's gonna be a fun one tonight. I'm gonna wrap this up with a Chicago player. I'm gonna take.
Who are we taking? Levine?
I've taken Levine on like every time I've taken a Chicago player. I kind of want to take Paul George though. Like he's just here at the end. Anytime I can get like a. We didn't really talk about how the swaps work, but if you take like a swap is like a reverse snake. So if you take somebody in the 6th round, like you're getting well, if you have 6.1, you get the first swap priority. So like if you took Paul George at 31, you would guarantee your swap. But even if you're taking him at 36, like or 34, where I took him, you're gonna be the 4th person in order. And since Kuzma, well, Kawhi is questionable, so I guess you could get it, but I'll get at least my 2nd swap. It's not like if you're taking Trae Young, anybody who has a swap in the 6th, 5th, or 4th will get a pick ahead of you. I think the swap stuff is confusing. I think everyone needs to listen to that like week 5 Badge Bros stream to understand it. But the swaps are so important, especially on a night like tonight, that like you do want to be cognizant of it. Like I want to take the Paul George in the last round as much as I can, or somebody who I like if they play, and if they don't play, they're in the last round, and I get my first priority of the undrafted players. That's going to at least be something I'm heavy on tonight. We'll see how it goes. But
yeah,
for everyone out there,
historically last season, drafting questionable players was a pretty profitable strategy.
Yeah, and then you don't like doubtful is different, because if the doubtful person isn't in, then you don't get a swap.
Yeah, never draft doubtful players
or
never
out
is a
players.
strong word. Yeah, but I don't personally do that strategy. There are some people who do. But.
Yeah, just put that out there. But for everyone who came and listened, thank you all. Brent, Sneaker Dad, Elias, anyone else who chatted. I hope you guys have a